Hi YouTube, it's the Summary Guy here, and as I beat more games in my backlog on Twitch, I wanted to add very brief reviews of some of the more popular games that I'm completing for the first time. Nothing super detailed, but just to talk and discuss my thoughts on these games that are potentially decades old. I've already beaten a handful and I might go back and review those as well, but I wanted to start this potential video series off with Final Fantasy VI. The story of this game holds up very well, I think. It's a very dark storyline. You are at first trying to stop a war from escalating, and just when you think you might be, the world radically shifts and the second half of the game begins. The second half came across as a bit more of a supernatural conflict rather than a war story to me, and this makes sense for dramatic purposes. Most watching this review probably already know this game's story. I knew some of it already as well, so I won't say any spoilers. I want people to take from this review, though, is that the story held up really well for a game that's almost 25 years old. The party members each had specific moments in the story which I loved. This was especially true in the second half of the game as you get your team back together, and each character's story in the second half felt kind of like an episode or two of a TV show, or perhaps a Saturday morning cartoon. I loved this aspect of the game, but while I loved each character's backstory, I thought there was some lacking in what the characters offered for gameplay purposes, at least for some of the characters. Cyan easily comes to mind here. He was not used much after his first segment of the game, and then also his segment in the second half, but his story might be the saddest of all the characters, to be quite honest. Other characters I didn't use much included Gal, Umaro the Yeti, Setzer, Strago, Gogo, and Realm. They had some parts where I thought they were usable, but usually Terra, Locke, and Celis, maybe Sabin and Edgar, usually did a better job, and I had them mostly in my rotation. Mog and Shadow were somewhat used and had purposes, so I'll give them a tier by themselves in terms of how often I used them. The Esper system was pretty fun to use, I will say, teaching characters spells to balance each other out. You can sit and grind and make the game really easy and potentially pretty boring though, which I noticed somewhat happened when I got stuck in a particular dungeon and fought so many random encounters that I was always a few levels higher than I think what the game intended. Some Espers give your characters permanent bonuses when you level up with that Esper equipped, but this also caused some Esper management issues when characters were about to level up, which somewhat was tedious when you had to constantly switch them in and out to make sure each character got the bonus that you wanted them to get. Graphics were pretty good for 1994 standards. Other Super Nintendo games in '94 include Donkey Kong Country, Super Metroid, Killer Instinct. Comparing cross-genres can be difficult to do, but the graphics in Final Fantasy VI were pretty good. Nothing, I would say, eye-popping like a Donkey Kong Country was, but some of the character sprites were quite detailed and honestly, a very well-done job for a Super Nintendo RPG. For my first time completing Final Fantasy VI, almost 25 years after its North American release, I really enjoyed this game. I had played it a couple of times in the late 90s with the Anthology collection. I tried it again a few years later, but I never finished it, and I'm glad I finally sat down and really got to soak in a great story. The story is pretty unique by today's standards as it has no real main character. I'd say Terra and Celis come closest, but they're not exactly the main character. The characters were fleshed out, even if I didn't find many uses for some of them in battle. The level up system was intriguing and very fun to customize with, but it can make the game fairly easy if abused just a little bit. The music and sound of this game were really good as well. Terra's theme, Locke's theme, I like the Velt map song, Cyan's theme was great as well. Tons of great songs in this game. The game was still really fun for a first-time player in 2018, and I recommend it. So what are your thoughts on Final Fantasy VI? Please comment and subscribe, and I hope to get more out for you soon. Thanks everyone, and take care.